I didn't realize this was like controversial. I think the reason it's controversial to some people is because they are very committed to the idea of what masculinity looks like. And if it doesn't look the way that they think it should, they feel it as a threat and they get very defensive. Even on my own socials, when I do get negative comments, it's often from men who are very upset about something I'm saying, even if it's not, toward them.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Birth Lounge podcast. Have you heard about my completely free class that teaches you 6 evidence-based ways to avoid a C-section and reduce your tearing in labor by up to 50%? And remember, I mentioned it was completely free. This class is going to teach you how to advocate for your preferences in the birth room so that you can have a birth that's filled with joy and not birth trauma. Advocating for yourself starts with being empowered with the right information so that you can ask the right questions and confidently make decisions during labor based on what feels good to you and your baby. But here's the thing. The U.S. has one of the highest C-section rates in the world, and it is ever climbing year after year. And it's not because the system is broken, albeit it is, but it's really because women don't have the tools to navigate that broken system. We may not be able to change the system before you have your baby, but what we can do is change how you operate within that system. Change the conversations that you're having with your providers. Change the places that you are getting your information to help you have informed conversation with your doctor before you have your baby. I want to teach you how to do that. We know the reasons that our C-section rates are climbing. We know the reasons that inductions happen so often, and we know the reasons that babies end up in the NICU. I want to help you avoid all of that so that you can have a birth that you love. You can find my free class at thebirthlounge.com/C-section so that you can learn 6 evidence-based ways to avoid a C-section and reduce your tearing in labor. Again, that is thebirthlounge.com/C-section. See you there. Bye. All right, I am officially on the 6-month plus side of having a baby. It has been an incredible journey so far. I absolutely love being a mom. There is literally nothing in the world that I love more than being a mom, and I did not know that that was going to be my experience, and goodness, I'm so grateful for it. And within that, I've also had a lot of lessons learned. I just recently shared on one of the episodes about all of the things that I was super unprepared for and I didn't expect in motherhood. And one of those things is actually boy mom culture. Now, I was lucky enough to have a boy, not that I would not have loved a girl, but I just felt that Saji was a boy from the very beginning there. I shared this with you. There was just no doubt in my mind that he was a boy. And in fact, when he was born, he was a boy. And I started to obviously get fed a bunch of algorithm stuff that was boy mom culture. And there's this place in boy mom culture that can be really, really weird. I did not know about this until I had a boy. And it reminds me a lot of the Oedipus complex, right? Which states that children experience unconscious sexual desires for their opposite sex parent. And while also I should add that in this theory, it also states that you often view the parent of your same sex as a rival, right? And so it reminds me of this. It's not quite like this, but there is this piece in boy mom culture where moms will unintentionally, I do not think it's intentional, it's an unintentional, like almost sexualization of their little boys. They will refer to them as things like your boyfriend, or there are these yucky reels that go around that say like, I'm already prepared to like be mean to any other woman that ever loves my son. Like, just really weird. Like, why would you want to be a monster-in-law to your future daughter-in-law? It makes no sense. Or, you have these reels, and these are a little funnier, but then deep down you kind of question it, like, hey, what? And it's like, they show a small little clip of their like 4 or 5 year old, and then it's the mom hysterically crying, and she's like, sorry, I just got caught up like thinking about him like being married and having a wife and not loving me as the only woman in his life. And it's like, ha ha ha, that's so funny. And also, like, underneath that, that's kind of weird. Like, don't you want your child to grow up and be in a healthy relationship? Don't you want them to have the same relationship that you have with your partner, that's loving and safe and kind, and a person to go through life with? Don't you want that for your child? And that can't be you're not their romantic relationship, right? Like, you have a different relationship with your child. You are their mother. Yes, you're safe. Yes, you are the first love of their life. Yes, you are their caretaker. But at some point they break off and they're independent of you, and you should want them to have a healthy and flourishing relationship. And so I was really caught off guard by this part of boy mom culture, and so I started to pull away, and I was like, I don't know that I want to be part of boy mom culture. So where is my place? And I have found a little pocket of the internet that calls it being the mom of boys. And someone who I have been watching for a long time, and I've learned a lot, and she actually has a house full of boys. You may know her as Weasel. Breeze is a perinatal mental health therapist, content creator, and a mother of 5. And she loves creating content about being a millennial mom, being a therapist, and comedy. It's really so funny. Like, her reels crack me up. But what I'm most interested in is actually something that she's in the middle of. It's the series that she's calling the Better Boys Project, where she records conversations about important topics like privilege and menstruation, and what does it mean to actually be a masculine male, and how do boys show up in the world and interact with girls. And she really has this aim to help her boys and encourage other people to do the same, to raise men who are going to be helpful in dismantling the patriarchy. You can find her at BreezelWeasel _. And like I say, give her a follow. I find her account hilarious, but more so, her Better Boys Project series is so fun to watch, and it gives you tangible steps. And so today, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how are we raising these boys that are going to be feminists. They're going to be safe spaces for women. They're going to be good husbands. They're going to be involved and engaged dads, but they're not losing their masculinity. How do you talk to young boys about consent and weaponized incompetence and being helpful in menstruation? And what does it look like to actually have an emotionally intelligent husband? Plus, what to do if you realize that maybe your partner is not emotionally intelligent. Breeze is also going to tell us about how she is practicing keeping open communication in her home, and what she's doing to foster a good relationship with her boys, so that hopefully as they grow, they are these strong men, but also they protect women in their life and they protect women's rights. I'm super excited to have this, and we're probably going to touch on some things that some people consider controversial, but I know that for me, this was really helpful. And as I think about raising more children in this world, and I think about raising young boys that are going to go on to be husbands and dads, I want to know that I am equipped to do my very best, and I am equipped to help them navigate this world and be a safe space, and also keep themselves safe. And I want to model for them what that looks like, and I also want to have that relationship with my husband where he's on board with that, and we're doing this as a whole family. And so buckle up, because that is what we're diving into today. So boy moms, or shall I say moms of boys, unite. Grab your pen and paper and let's go. Without further ado, Breeze, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
You have no idea. I'm super excited. I'm so excited for this conversation. Before we started recording, I told you a little bit about, I've always pictured being a mom. It's
Yeah.
so funny the things that once you're a mom, like what actually matters versus what doesn't. And everyone talks
Right.
about those things, right? It's like,
Yes.
I'm never doing screen time. And fast forward, it's like, my child sees me answer text messages and emails all the time, every day.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
you know,
Hmm.
but deeper than that, for me, something that has come up, and it was so funny. I'm super convinced, call me a conspiracy theorist, but I'm so convinced our phones are listening because
Oh, they
as I
are.
started, definitely, as I started to learn
Hmm.
about boy mom culture,
Hmm.
your profile popped up and you had
Oh.
this like boy mom project or raising good
Hmm.
boys project.
Yeah.
And I started to be like, oh my God, this is what I need. Like,
Yes.
boy mom culture is really weird. It's
It
like
is.
so split and there's multiple
Hmm.
camps of it. And I was really
Yeah.
caught off guard by how I told you before we started recording, like, I don't have a better word for it, but like almost yucky some
Yeah.
moms are in the way that
Hmm.
they like describe their
Hmm.
relationship with their
Hmm.
little boys. Just a
Hmm.
couple of weeks ago, I was having dinner with some people and I knew some people and I didn't know
Yeah.
some people at this dinner. And there was two moms I did not know, never
Yeah.
met them before. And they were describing their sons as their boyfriends, and I was so
No.
disgusted. And I was like, oh my God, I'm really freaked out. Like, I need to get home and hug my baby and like let him know
Yes.
he's not my boyfriend. He never will be
Yeah.
my boyfriend. And like, if he brings home a partner, like I will love them just the same. Like, you're
Yes.
not my boyfriend. Daddy's my boyfriend,
Hmm.
but you're not my boyfriend.
Exactly.
You're my
Exactly.
baby. Like, I am your mommy. Like,
Yeah.
and I just thought it was so weird. And so today's
It's
episode,
so
I'm
weird.
hoping to just kind of like dive into this. Like, what is it like raising boys in today's culture? Why do we think
Yeah.
this mommy culture has turned in such a like yucky, borderline sexual? And I know that's no one is like trying to
No
sexual.
one's has, yeah, they're not
I
thinking that, but the language is very
It's
odd, right?
weird.
Yeah.
Like, what is
Hmm.
it? Tell us about that.
Yes. Yes. I feel like it's very complicated, honestly, because I think the idea of boy mom that has kind of been co-opted by these like kind of strange things, like you're talking about, right? Like saying, my son is my boyfriend, or like there's like big trends like TikTok, Instagram, where you'll see moms who are like talking about like they have like a toddler son and they're like, oh, I already hate my future daughter-in-law, like just weird, or like that type of vibe, even if they're
So
not saying
weird.
that. Yeah, it's very, very weird. And I think, I mean, I feel like it's so complicated. I feel like a lot, like you said, I don't think like these moms think they're being weird, or like I don't think they're trying to like sexualize their kids, because I think sometimes they like people get offended. I don't think that's their intention. I think what happens is, well, I think it's a lot of things. I think number one, I think if you're in a society, especially beyond just like our society, right? Like in the States here. But like if you're in a society that really says all your value is only in motherhood, I think sometimes things get ramped up a little bit and it gets kind of weird, because you're like, this is my only, and motherhood is amazing. Obviously, I've chosen to do it many times, but I think if you think that's what all there is for you, then sometimes that importance gets to like levels that kind of don't make sense. Like, so that's weird. I also think sometimes, not always, sometimes these women have really amazing partners, but I think sometimes they maybe are like, that relationship with their son is they're getting a lot of needs met. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But I think it's like, and you know this, all moms know this, boy or girl, no matter non-binary, I don't care. Whatever your kid is, you know that when your baby is like, they love you, like they don't know how to do anything other than just like love you, and like they're so happy to see you. Like I understand how it goes down that road, because I think they're like, oh my gosh, I've never felt this unconditional love before. But then it just kind of gets weird. So that's that. Okay. So I never thought I would have all boys. I for sure thought I was going to have girls. I don't know why I thought that. I don't know why we assume anything. But I thought I would for sure like have girls and like do girly stuff and like, oh, we're gonna get our nails done together, all these things. And so when we had our first, we found out early he would be a boy, and I was super excited. I was like, oh, I mean, that's a surprise, but great. And then we had our second, and it was another boy, and I was like, wow. And they were also very close together. So that was a very overwhelming time. I was like, okay, well, I would love to have a daughter one day. And then our third was also a boy, and I was like, I think this is the only thing that's going to be happening, is having boys. And I was right. Now I have five boys, and I do love it. But I don't feel like the boy mom mentality or the boy mom culture, whatever we want to call it, has always been there. Because I think that like when my first was born, he's now 11. The term boy mom, as far as I know, did not have a negative connotation at all. Like it was just like boy mom, whatever. Girl, I don't ever hear boy dad. That's really interesting. Girl dad, whatever. But I feel like it was only in maybe like the past 5, 6, 7 years that like the tide started to turn, and maybe it's a little because of the social media stuff. But it's very strange. I think a big part of this is just living in a patriarchal society. It's
Mm.
like we're really elevating our boys in a different way than we're elevating girls. It's really interesting that like people will say like I'm a girl mom, but it's not the same type of thing as a boy mom, right? It's like it becomes your whole identity, and that really does fall in line with patriarchal ideas. Like let's center the boys. What does it mean to raise a boy? So I'm giving you such a roundabout answer to say raising boys can be really, really complicated. And I think sometimes people say things like, oh, raising boys is so much easier. They're less dramatic. They're less whatever. Like they're just rough and tumble and bally. And that maybe that is your boy, but that's not true. They're just as emotionally, nuanced and complicated and sweet and crazy sometimes as girls. So I think it's just we're painting with too broad of a brush with boy moms. And I found that there's a lot of moms out there that are trying to reclaim this title, kind of like you. I have a friend, Kyle. She's amazing. If you don't follow her already, her name's so it's like Payal. Yeah, she's amazing. She does a lot of like boy mom stuff that's like anti-boy, raising boys to be kind and all these things. So it's tricky, but also it's very much worth it because regardless of if our sons grow up and do have a partner one day, they're going to have friends, they're going to have employers, they're going to have people in their lives. And we want them to be like these fully realized people, not just like, oh, boys will be boys, or, emotions aren't important to you because you're a boy, or you can only do this because you're a boy. Like we're raising people to be adults, right? So it's hard and it's complicated, but I think if you're intentional about it and you think about this person's going to be a fully realized human being functioning in the world one day, then it's like, okay, this is worth the work.
And also, we're not trying to raise Ted Bundys. Like, no one wants to raise a
Right.
psychopath where you like didn't teach them
Exactly.
how to treat women in their life or like
Yes.
interact with women. And so, like, what
Yes.
kind of things are you doing around your home where you're like, I'm raising feminist boys who care about women, who are going to stand
Mm-hmm.
up for women without
Mm-hmm.
being controlling masculine men, right? But you don't want to
Yeah.
lose that masculine. You want to help them
Yeah.
stand in that masculine, but healthy masculine. It is very
Exactly. Away
complex,
from the
right?
toxic masculinity. That's the thing. Yes. And I think sometimes I know before we started recording, you were like, I didn't realize this was like controversial. I think the reason it's controversial to some people is because they are very committed to the idea of what masculinity looks like. And if it doesn't look the way that they think it should, they feel it as a threat and they get very defensive. Even on my own socials, I don't get a lot of, I mean, I've built a very supportive community, which is wonderful. When I do get negative comments, it's often from men who are very upset about something I'm saying, even if it's not, toward them. So when we talk about like raising feminist boys, so what I started how long was this ago? Maybe like 6 months ago. I'm so bad with time. There was, I had started recording conversations that I had with my sons without showing them. So it's like video of me. You've seen them, right? It's like video of me because I don't show their faces online anymore. And just having conversations. So one of the first one was after the Olympic men's team won, and they said some like disparaging remarks against the women's team. And honestly, that really pissed me off watching that. And I was like, this is making me mad because in a time where it's supposed to be unifying, like the Olympics is like, you're like, we're together as a country. This is so cool. We want to celebrate each other. It was like immediately these men said things. And then on top of that, they were like, you guys are too sensitive. It's not that big of a deal, whatever. So that was one of the first videos I did with them. And it was just like a frank conversation. And my boys range in age from the youngest is 3. So he's really just sitting there listening. He's not doing a lot of input yet. But the oldest is 11. So we have a big range there. And we just talked about like, why do you think this is an issue? Like, what do you think, like, how do you think it would feel if, someone was talking about girls that way in front of you? Like, why do you think they felt that they needed to say that? And I think we also forget like kids are very intuitive and insightful. And they also don't have the worry that adults have of like, I shouldn't say this or whatever. So sometimes they'll say things and I'm like, oh, no, not quite, not quite. But most of the time, they're like, I'm like, yes, exactly. Spot on. You know why this is wrong. So we started there. And then after that, I was like, okay, I feel like I need to be more intentional with this. So I started doing little lessons with them. I called it the Better Boys Project.
Yes.
Anyone can watch along with these. It's not just for boys. Like girls need to hear this. Everyone needs to hear this. But essentially, we did these little videos, and it would be me teaching them about something, some topic that I find important. So we started off with like what myths and truths about what boys should be. Because like things, people say like boys don't cry or boys don't do this or boys shouldn't wear that or like that or whatever it is. So truths about boys, myths about boys, gave them some good like diverse characters of masculinity, kind of like you're talking about. Like Mr. Rogers is just as masculine as Jason Kelsey, right? Like we showed Jason Kelsey having his exit interview and he's, crying because he loves this sport. He's sad to say goodbye. And yet he's this like big, hulking football player dude that looks rough, right? And then you have Mr. Rogers who's showing inclusivity in back in the time when this aired, he had a black police officer on his show and it was like this big thing, and so how inclusivity is part of masculinity too. Like it's a very wide range and it's not just being tough. So I'll just say I started doing that, and people asked a lot. They're like, so can you teach us how to do this? Like we like watching your videos, but what should we do? So I made a little like guide. I put it out there. It's not very expensive, but it basically just walks through people through these topics. So like, what do we talk about? We talk about consent. We talk about weaponized incompetence, which is a big one in our house, let me tell you. And let's see what else we talk about. There's so many things. We talked about periods and menstruation. That was a funny one. My kids really, and they're so unembarrassed when they're young. Like even as I'm teaching it, and I know you probably don't have this because it's like your job. Like this is your whole thing. So you're like, what? I talk about this stuff all the time. But I was like, okay, we got to talk very bluntly about these types of things. And they were unfazed. And so I think if we come with that approach of like, it's never too late to start, but if your kids are young, they're going to be unfazed by this stuff. And then it just becomes part of their vocabulary, their vernacular. And then they're not adults saying, like when they sent the woman to the into space and they were like, is 100 tampons enough or whatever they said, like we're avoiding that. So that's what we're trying to. I don't do it perfectly, but I feel like these little lessons have done so much for my kids, but they've also done so much for me to unpack like how am I actually like making sure that I'm raising them in this way, because there's a lot of things that are deeply ingrained in us even on accident, just from the world or how we grew up or whatever, that it's like, oh yeah, no, I shouldn't say that to my kids. I never really thought about the deeper meaning there or whatever. So it's been a ride, but it's been great. And I've had some very great feedback about people feeling more able to tackle these topics. And that makes me feel great. So
Yeah, I think it's hard to
yeah.
have these conversations, especially when you grow up in homes that didn't have these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I also come from a home that it's just me and my sister. So we were a girl home. We didn't have boys,
Right.
right? And so the
Right.
conversations were really different. It was more so for me like, you're tough, you're strong, you can do
Yeah.
anything that you want to do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you don't
Mm-hmm.
see a girl being that job? Go be the first girl that has that job.
Right.
Like, that's okay.
Yes.
You don't need
Yeah.
other girls to
That's
have that
amazing.
job if that's what you
Mm-hmm.
want, right? But there
Mm-hmm.
was not any space for the balance because we didn't have boys. So there was
Right.
no
Mm-hmm.
conversations about what does healthy masculinity look like. Luckily,
Right.
I have a great dad and he was a great role
Yeah.
model, but
Yeah.
I think now being the mom of a boy, not a boy mom, the mom of a boy, not a yucky boy mom at least.
Yep.
I am learning how to have these conversations, and I think you make a really great point, and it does probably come very naturally to me because I do this for a living, but
Yeah.
it is just talking openly with your children so that these things become normal and you remove that taboo. So, all the taboo that a lot of us feel
Mm-hmm.
come from those silent lessons that we got at home, right? Like,
Yeah.
sex is not really anything to talk about, or like,
Right.
periods are like a girl thing. So, like, put the tampon up
Yeah.
your sleeve, walk to the bathroom, like,
Right.
don't pull out your tampon, don't say anything about your
Mm-hmm.
period. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
quiet, it's a hush hush. Like, no, periods exist. It's something that girls
Mm-hmm.
go through. Also, we
Yeah.
don't choose that. That's
Yeah.
literally given to us.
Yes,
So if I
exactly.
have to do it, you have to know about it. And
Exactly.
I think it's just really healthy to have these conversations with our boys because the messaging online is probably not doing that, depending on where you're hanging out online.
Yeah.
I think there's been this rise, and it's super scary to me. And I just watched that the Manosphere
Oh, yeah.
documentary on
Yeah.
Netflix.
Hmm.
There's this rise of men that hate women. And it
Yes.
is terrifying to me. And there's another one. What's the one about the teenagers?
Yes. Truthfully, I didn't even watch that one because I didn't think I could handle it.
So, me too. I was just about to say, I
Yes.
haven't watched it because I'm
Yes. I
actually
will eventually,
honestly
but I'm like,
scared.
I got to be in a good headspace before that one. But
Yeah.
it's true. And I think the scary part is a lot of those men, like, those are some, like, obviously, it's made for entertainment in a way. So, like, there's a lot of extreme cases there, and those are very real. But I think a lot of these men in those, like, online communities, they don't think they hate women. Like, they're
Mm.
like, no, I don't hate women. I have a sister. I have a mom. Like, I have a wife. But they're things that they're doing and the way that they are responding to women and women's issues, it's like very transparent that they do. So I think that's what's a little bit scary is like sometimes we see these things and they're so obvious, like, okay, that's obviously incel culture that they're blaming women for all of their problems. But that's like the fringe isn't that fringe anymore. I think that's what we're seeing is like a lot of these men are not really nervous about how they feel. They're being very loud about it. They're like, no, I think you're not as good as me, or I think women should do this or whatever. And it's very easy for anyone, including our young boys, to stumble upon on the internet. And that's why I think when you have these conversations with them, you're prepping them to say, huh, okay, this isn't the first time that we talked about consent or weaponized incompetence or what boys should do. So when they stumble upon, because they will, your kids are going to be on the internet one day, right? If they stumble upon those things, even by accident, they're not going, oh, this is the first time I've ever thought of this. Because right, our brains are do work in kind of annoying ways sometimes that it's like if we see something for the first time and we absorb it, we kind of do, unless it's really, really out there, we do absorb it as truth. So if your kid is kind of stumbling upon, some like red pill incel Andrew Tate nonsense, and that's the first he's ever heard about it, how do we expect them to say, something's wrong? Something is weird there. Like existing in a household with a sister or a mother or knowing girls or anything like that is not enough. Like we have to be very, very consistent because those movements are very consistent and they are trying to recruit your kids. Like I hate to say it, but it's true. Like they're like, believe this. This is how you're a man. This is how you get power. This is how you get value as a boy, as a man, is all of these things as being like macho or being, strong in this very specific way, being dominating, being all of these things. And so if you start from the beginning and saying and show them like, look at this guy. Look at like, I know this is kind of a silly one, but we watched like in that Jason Kelsey, Mr. Rogers, we showed like Indiana Jones. We're like, okay, look at this. Sure. Adventuring guy. He's cool. He's awesome. He's also smart. He's also like whatever, he's like a professor or whatever, all these things. So if we start that at home, then they can go, oh wait, like that's not the only way I can show that I is like if that's important to me and I want to feel masculine, whatever that means, like I can actually decide what that means. Like this
Mm.
random guy on the internet is not going to be the only one to ever tell me.
So, how are you fostering the relationship with your boys where they feel comfortable telling you things? As a mental health therapist, like what do parents need to know about keeping that open line of communication? Because I feel like, I mean, you're kind of in it and or about to be in it with that preteen
Mm-hmm.
phase. This is where a
Mm-hmm.
lot of relationships start to kind of deteriorate and crumble because a lot of parents, there's that tension there, right? Of like,
Yep.
you're not an adult, but I want to give you some freedom. The child is like, I need a lot of freedom. And you're trying to strike this balance.
Yes.
And communication can really break down here. So, what are you doing to keep that open?
Hmm. I think this is one of the hardest things for me. And I think it's hard for all parents, but I think the hard part is like you cannot start that when they become a teenager. And that's something that I have to constantly remind myself. Like you can't have, your 1, 2, 3, whatever year old and not hear them out on things. And then all of a sudden they're 13, 14, 15 years old. And you're like, tell me about XYZ. No, you have to start immediately. So sometimes, and I know this This is going to sound terrible, but it's not, okay? Sometimes your kid is going to talk to you about things that you don't care about. Do I care about Minecraft? Absolutely
No.
not. So boring. But if they want to talk to you about Minecraft or they want to talk to you about, Mom, I made up this game or whatever, I'm not saying you have to like answer every single bit for attention. But when they're telling you about something that they care about, even if it's like, this is literally mind-numbingly boring, or I have stuff to do or whatever, those opportunities will matter later. And that's what can be very difficult for me. I'm just totally honestly, partially because it's like, sometimes I'm like, I have a million things to do and you're telling me about this thing and like what is the point of the story, right? Like I love you, but what is happening? What are you even saying right now? Or I have 5 kids, so like there's just like a lot of kids to listen to. But I think then when your kid is a little older, and again, my oldest is only 11, so I'm like just on the precipice here. But when they're older and you go to them and you're like, hey, like what's going on with that friend? Like something seems weird there. They're not going to want to share that if you didn't listen to the Minecraft, if you didn't listen to the show I watched or whatever it is. And I mean, that's not a guarantee, but it's likely, right? It's like a friendship that you have. If a friend only like pays attention to you, sometimes you're like, oh, I don't really know if I can rely on you, right? And so that plays out in a lot of ways. I think sometimes it's like hearing my kids out when there's like a fight between them. And this is where it comes into play. That's very hard for me, is when it's so obvious that I'm like, you did a wrong thing. Like, I don't want to hear you talk about why you did it. Like, I don't want to tell you, like, you were mean to your brother. I don't want to hear, but I do as much as I can, because even if the repercussions are the same, like, hey, you got to go take a break by yourself because you're kind of out of control or you're losing a privilege or whatever it is, even if those things are the same, they still deserve to be heard and listened to in that moment. And then go, I get it. I get how you're feeling. And I maybe even understand why you reacted that way. It's still not okay. So I think that if you can just start from a place of openness, I know it's like that sounds so simple, but it's really not that simple.
That's
I
hard.
think that's how you start. It is hard. And I here's the big thing. And I actually have her book right here. Dr. Becky, she's up here. One thing in her parenting book that she talks about is how you essentially have to reparent yourself. And this is no shade to my parents, but you have to reparent yourself a little bit in parenting, and you'll notice these little like difficult spots that come up where it's hard for you to show up for your children if your parents didn't show up for you in that way. And you can have the best parents. This is not you have to have like awful parents or a traumatic childhood. The best parents did not show up for you in every way because they were only human and they did their best most of the time, right? So whatever way your parent missed, whether it was unintentional, whether it was trauma, anything, it will come up in your kids and you'll go, oh my God, this is so hard. For me, it comes up with like my kids have really big emotions and they like, I, I mean, my parents were the parenting where it was like, if your kid was kind of out of control, you send them to their room until they calm down. That was very common of the time. So again, don't blame them for that. But now when my kids do that, I'm like, it makes me, I'm like, oh, I want to send you to your room so bad. And sometimes there are times where I'm like, you need to go take a breath. But sitting with my kids and hearing them have these what feels like irrational emotions and hearing them explain themselves and all these things can be really, really tough. But again, it fosters that openness. It shows them that all of their feelings are welcome, even if the behavior is not. And I hope, I mean, again, talk to me in a few years. We'll see how things are going. But I think so far it has helped. I think my eldest is he's very like, quiet. He always has been that way, but still he does share with me, especially if the questions are asked, then he'll share. Or maybe sometimes he shares with my husband because my husband is doing the same thing here. But yeah, so that's the hope. And I feel like even though I don't have teenagers yet, I do often have clients who are teenagers, or I have parents of teenagers. And I do see the parents who have really tried their best to foster that connection, not perfectly, but they've said, like, you can tell me anything. And then they actually follow up that with action. Then their teenagers are more open. They don't tell them everything because teenagers actually aren't supposed to tell you everything, but they are more open. So I think it does help. We can't control everything, but I think that's what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, and perfection is never the goal, right? Like perfect doesn't
No,
exist.
no.
Striking that 80-20 balance or even
Yeah,
a 60-40 balance is probably plenty. Like you kind of said it in the
it
beginning,
is.
like your kids are programmed to love you unconditionally. And I think for a lot of us parents, that's very comforting. We can
It
rest
is.
assured that when we mess up, we're not messing up our child and we're not destroying the whole relationship that we have
I
with
know.
them. And it really
Yes.
does come down to repair. So, talk to us about that. How are you repairing with your boys
Hmm.
as a mom? Because I feel like the dynamic between dad and son is very different than
Hmm.
mom and son, which is probably very different between mom and dad and daughter. As a daughter,
Yeah,
I can
totally.
say
Yeah.
that. I can say
Yeah.
that my relationships are different. But like as a mom, how are you going to your boys to repair when things get hairy?
Yes. Okay, I love that you brought this up because I feel like especially like this is still a very comforting idea to me, but especially like in the earlier years, like toddler years, and as they get more like their personality comes out more, I had this such a fear of like ruining the relationship. I don't know why I thought that. Like I think I was just you want to be a good parent, you know?
Yeah.
So I think anytime there's like the rupture, right? So whether it's essentially like a disruption of the connection is how I think. So sometimes that means like oh, maybe I yelled at my kid, or maybe I like scolded them for something, whether it was warranted or not. Maybe I missed a bid for attention that was really important for them. Whatever it is, I can tell you one of my kids, I'm like, he probably wouldn't care that I share this, but I'm gonna not give too much detail. Basically, qualified for like a high cap thing at his school, so like highly capable, whatever, which is great. But they said, hey, we need you to do one more little test at home, and just to like qualify you or whatever. And so I gave it to him and he was like, I don't know how to do this part. And I was like, I can't help you actually. Like I can't help you. It literally says in the directions, which makes sense. Like I can't help you. It's for like if you don't know how to do it, that's the point. And he's like, I don't know how to do this. Like he's getting really upset. And this child of mine does not get upset like this frequently. And I made number one, I made the mistake of having him do this after a long day. I didn't realize the deadline was coming. So it's like all these factors that came into play. It was just not good. And I said to him, which in the moment, this was not a purposeful rupture of the connection, but it was one. I was like, if you don't know how to do it, then just don't do it because that's the point. If you're not ready to do this, I think it was like division or something. So if you're not ready to do this division, then you shouldn't be in that specific pull-out class because you won't be ready for it. It'll be too challenging. So like just don't do it. And I said it just like this, okay? So I'm like, it's fine. And then I go in later and he's like crying in his room. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And so my first response is like, wait, what is happening even? Like not even a like upset, but I was just like, why is he so upset? What's going on? And luckily I am married to a very emotionally intelligent and attuned husband. And he was like, I know what you said and I know what you meant. I think what he heard was, you're not smart enough. That's
Oh,
not what you said, but I think that's what it meant. So the repair in that instance was going back to him. And I said, I hope you know, I would never tell you that you're not smart enough, not good enough, or anything. I was trying to not make you stressed out that, like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And he's actually very much like me that, like, sometimes it's hard to like move on from something. And so with him specifically, I like if I can interject a little humor and like make him laugh, it's like it like kind of breaks the ice. And so I said, you know, like math is stupid and it doesn't really matter. Like it's dumb. Like who cares? And he kind of like giggled and I was like, I mean, it's great that you're good at math, but like I don't really care about that. And if I made you feel like the math was more important than how you feel, I did not mean to. So sometimes it looks like that. Sometimes it looks like, hey, I'm sorry I got upset with you. It was not that big of a deal. But I think sometimes, like, so sometimes it's a big conversation, sometimes it's a small one. But I think at the end of the day, it goes back to like restoring the connection with them. So whatever that means for your kid. One of my kids, he needs like physical touch afterwards. Like he needs to be hugged. He wants to sit next to you. Like when there's been some sort of like conflict or disagreement, the one that I was just talking with, it's like he kind of needs a little redirection, a little like, let's laugh, whatever. So I think at the end of the day, like we all know our kids best, but if you just seek restoring the connection with them, then that's the repair. And it's not all on, okay, hear me when I say it's not on women to fix this problem of how men are treating women. But I think when we do things like this, when we have the repair conversations with our sons and we say, hey, I'm sorry, like if we did something wrong, we say, I'm really sorry that I did that. That's not what I meant, or whatever it is, then we add things to the tally of women or anyone who's not like a macho guy is not my enemy. Like I think sometimes those communities really play on if you had a very domineering woman in your life, and again, not a responsibility, but it's helpful. Like they go, oh my gosh, yeah, your mom made you feel that way. You had an ex-girlfriend that made you feel that way. That's because women want to XYZ or whatever. So I think anytime that we can model, like, this is what a good relationship looks like, regardless of gender. This is what a healthy parenting relationship looks like. And then hopefully, whatever other relationships they get into our lives, they carry those things of like being able to say sorry or having some like, there's nuance to things or taking it someone else's perspective. I think all of that goes into that column of, okay, I am not gonna like being a feminist is a normal thing for a human being, men included, to be. And so I think it just helps us get there.
And it doesn't mean you're some Weasley weak man, right? Like you're not trading
Right.
your masculinity, your healthy masculinity, for
Right.
feminism. Like actually,
Right.
some of the most masculine men are
Hmm.
feminists because they know that it's a coexisting relationship. Like men and women
Totally.
need each other, right? Like
Yeah.
we want to be with each other for the most part. I mean, I don't want to be with
Hmm.
every man. Like some of them
Yeah.
suck. And I mean, some women suck too. I don't support all women.
Yeah.
Some of them, I'm like, I would
Right.
literally never be your friend, and I hope I
Right.
never ever run into you out in the real world. But like for the most part, we can have this really beautiful relationship, and I love that you talk
Yes.
about modeling these things for our boys not only teaches them that apologizing is good and something to
Hmm.
do, it
Hmm.
models how you do that,
Yeah.
and it sets them up for what they can expect in future relationships. I think a lot of times when we grow up in homes, so for example, I did not grow up in a home that apologized. I
Me
did
neither.
not learn how to
Hmm.
apologize until
Hmm.
I met my husband. And even
Hmm.
now, we've been together for it'll be 12 years in a few months and
Yeah.
been married for 3. We just had a baby. I am 35 years old and I
Yeah.
still struggle with apologizing because
Oh, same.
it's
Yes.
so hard to do when you weren't taught how to do it. And like
Yes.
my husband's so good. He's a great apologizer. He's really good at repair, and I suck at it. I'm really, really bad at it.
Yes.
I try to be good
Feel
at it,
you.
and I like
Hmm.
really want to be good at it. It is so it almost feels like ingrained in my DNA. Like it's crazy how much
Yes.
resistance I have. And I like
It's so
actively,
uncomfortable.
oh my God, I will actively like
Yeah.
literally avoid it. And I'm like, why are you being so resistant to this? Like, just
Hmm.
apologize, Haley. Like, you
Hmm. Hmm.
know
Hmm.
that you need to apologize. Like, just go say you're sorry. Like, you know what
Yeah.
you did wasn't right, or you know the way that you said that was snippy, or you know that you hurt his feelings unintentionally by saying
Yeah.
something that you thought was
Yeah.
fine, but like
Yeah.
the way that he heard it, much like your son, like hurt his feelings. Like it is crazy how much some of the things you just like, I don't know, those silent lessons that you grew up with. No one in my family ever said, like, we don't apologize, but it was
Right.
like, there was
Yeah.
never any repair in our family. And so
Yes.
now I am having to truly work so hard to unlearn those things. And it is like,
Yes.
oh my God, I've been working at it for, like I say, 12 years, and it's still so
Yeah.
hard. It is one of those things where I'm like, am I ever going to be good at this? And I don't know that being good at it is the goal. Like, am I getting better every time?
Yeah.
Yes. And
Or
that's,
can I just do it? Like
yeah.
sometimes, like, even if I suck at this, that when I went back to my son, I didn't even include this. And I love that you're saying this because that dynamic with my husband and I is exactly the same. He's so good at apologizing. He will admit he's wrong. And then sometimes he's like, and do you have anything to add? And I'm like,
And you're like, thank you
sorry.
so much for saying what you said. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yes. I'm
I have
like,
to go
I'm glad that
now.
you know that you're wrong. Bye. Yeah, no, it's literally so hard. And I think, again, I think part of it, we all have individual family dynamics, but I think that I'm guessing our parents are the same, similar ages because you and I are the same age. So I think that generation, it was very much like parents need to be in charge. And I think back then, being in charge meant you don't show a crack in the foundation type of thing. Like,
Mm,
don't apologize. Like, and it wasn't because maybe they didn't feel sorry or because they didn't make mistakes, but I think it was very hard. Like, no one was modeling to them. Their parents certainly were not modeling to them, like that an authority figure can make mistakes and admit those mistakes. So I think every generation we're like, okay, let's do a little bit better. Let's do a little bit better. And that's kind of like you said that you're like this unlearning. when I'm having a hard time with anything, whether it's apologizing or, something that I grew up with that I'm like trying to not do with my kids, all I think of is I am hopefully creating something for them, like making their childhood something that they don't have to unlearn. Because man, it is painful to unlearn things as an adult. And like, I'm sure, traumatize them in some way. They will need therapy in some way. That's fine. But I know it won't be these ways. So like, that's what we can do. And I think lots of times that's what I have to remind myself is I'm like, this feels uncomfortable for me right now. I do not like this. No one ever taught me how to do this, but I don't want my kid to feel this way when they're 35. So what do I do now to try and make that the reality? But I feel you. I think a lot of parents are in the same boat with this stuff. And it's so much easier to avoid these conversations because it is much more comfortable. And it's like puts us in the space of like, I can just do what was modeled to me and everything. But I think if we can try really hard to realize we don't have to be perfect when we have these conversations, number one, they happen, which is great. But also, what we're modeling to our kids is that it's okay to try things and be bad at them and then come back and say, oops, I didn't do that very well. I need to fix that. Like, even when we were talking about like the menstruation and stuff with my boys, there were many times I had to go back and use more inclusive language because that's something that is newer to me in my life. Not that I haven't thought of that way, but like I was not raised using that type of language. And so I kept saying, sorry, I meant to say blah, blah, blah. And like they're like, okay, whatever. Like they're unfazed. But if they can see, look at mom and dad and other adults are learning and they're changing their mind and they're learning something new and then they're deciding to do something different, that's actually really that's something they will learn from and they will be shaped by in such a positive way. So let yourself mess up with your son. Like, it's okay. And say, I messed up. And then he'll go, oh my gosh, wait, if my mom can mess up, that means I can. And then I'm okay still. And that's actually like top tier parenting.
Well, think about the pressure that that takes off your kids. So I live in Boston,
Mhm,
and around here, there are so many very prestigious high schools. And we have a lot of teacher friends.
mhm,
And when my husband and I first moved to this city, we were very, very poor and we had to have a
mhm,
roommate. And she was a
mhm.
guidance counselor. We lived with her
Oh,
for many years.
yeah.
And all of these people have shared the anxiety and the mental health that are running rampant right now in high schools because these
Mhm,
kids feel such immense pressure. And I think it
mhm.
comes from seeing parents that you perceive as being perfect and
Yes.
the pressure that our parents can put on us to
Mhm,
be perfect. And so I think
mhm.
that modeling, oops, I messed up, and like, oops, I tried that and I wasn't very good, but here's what I'm going to do next time to be better. Or,
Yeah.
I changed my mind. I want to
Yes.
do something in a different way. I want to make a different choice. It opens up that option for your child, and you
Mhm.
may be the only person that has given them that message.
Yes.
Everybody at school may be given the message you have to be perfect. Every single
Right.
thing that they hear is study for your SATs, make a good ACT score,
Mhm,
have the perfect body, have the perfect hair flip,
mhm,
whatever this
mhm.
like chiseling to the max, spend
Yeah.
hours in the gym, like be 9 years old
Yes.
in Ulta Beauty, like
Yes.
what? How have we
Yes.
gotten here? And I do think that there's so much responsibility on parents to be that place that your child can land in perfectly. Like,
Yes.
they don't have
Yes.
to be this perfect person at home or to please you or to get your love or to get praise. Like, let them show up imperfect and then show them that you also show up that way so that they know, hey, the
Mhm.
people that I love and I respect more than anything in the world also are doing these things.
Absolutely. I was trying to think as you were talking. I'll have to go back and find it. I think it was Jen Hatmaker has a quote about how I think a lot of parents they're trying to prepare their children for the world. And so they're like, well, the world's not going to treat them that way. So like I need to like not treat them that way either, or they're going to have like a rude awakening type of thing. And she talks about like being like actually that's exactly why you need to be the safe space for your kids is because the world won't care. Like, and it's not that they won't have like wonderful friends, hopefully, and all that type of thing, but like in general, people are not going to greet them and welcome them with the same level of love and care and softness as you can at home. And so it doesn't do them a disservice by giving them that place at home. It actually will probably make them stronger because when the world kicks their ass one day, they can come home and say, I know I can come be vulnerable and sad or whatever at home, and that's okay. And that's fine. Like I think all of these are so good. I think it goes to like when we show our kids a wide range of everything, right? Like whether it's the masculinity or like different types of people, like appearance wise or backgrounds or professions or whatever, it's like they don't question themselves as much because they're not like, oh well, I don't fit in that box. Like I don't fit in that box of what it means to be a boy. Or like for example, I try very hard to follow on social media for myself like people who look all different ways, who have all different backgrounds, who all these things, because if I'm only following, and this is not anything negative towards these people, but if I'm only following people who are living in big houses and I have new outfits every single day and they're thin and they're blonde and they're all these things, all of a sudden my brain starts going, why don't you look like that? Why don't you have that? Why aren't you like that? But when I see all of these things, I can go, oh my gosh, wait, I think all of these people are like beautiful and wonderful. And they have all these, like this purpose that is so different in so many ways that when I don't fit into the box of what it looks like to be a mom or a woman or anything, whatever it is, then it doesn't feel like I'm wrong. So same thing for our kids, whatever that looks like. Just like, hey, look at all these people. Isn't this great? And then they're like, oh, wait, I can do that. Just like you said, your family, which I love, that your family was like, oh, you don't see, a woman in that profession? Maybe you could be the first one. Like that is such a wonderful thing to have ingrained. And think of like how different it would be if like we didn't have a hard time apologizing ingrained, but we had a like all these other things ingrained younger in life. It was like so wonderful. So hopefully we can do that for our kids.
And what if, so bear with me here, you guys, stay with me. What if you being your safe space, your child's safe space, that gentle space that they can land, that they can show up imperfectly, teaches them that's actually what relationships are supposed to be like. So the people who
Mm-hmm.
don't treat them that way,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, ding dong, this is weird. Maybe I don't want to
Yes.
date this person. Maybe this
Yes.
person is not meant for me to marry. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be this person's friend because they don't allow me to show up in my true, authentic self. I think so much of
Mm-hmm.
our mental health problems in this country, which I'm not the therapist here, but I just think a lot of it is because, yes, social media, but it has warped our brain into thinking that who we are authentically is not good enough. It kind of goes back to what you were
Yes.
saying. Like, if
Yeah.
everyone in your feed is skinny and blonde and wears glasses and drives a Mercedes and has this spotless
Mm-hmm.
house, which, by the
Mm-hmm.
way, if they just pan their phone, it's probably a disaster.
Exactly.
But what if you could show your children actually real authentic relationships that are
Mm-hmm.
genuine and going to carry you through life look like this. So if it doesn't look like this, you should reevaluate. Is that safe? Is that
Yeah.
good for my mental health? Is that a
Yeah.
relationship that I want to keep? Is that a person that I want to continue to be, in connection with? Like, what if us modeling that at home could really rewire what our children then go out and accept or don't accept in the world around them?
Yeah, totally. That's seriously very beautifully said and so true. And I think beyond just like, yeah, beyond just being a safe space is like, hopefully then they go and seek out relationships that feel like what they were modeled. And then the cycle perpetuates in a good way. Like, I think that could be, yeah, I think in so many ways that could heal a lot of things in our world. So that is the goal. And I think for anyone listening, because I feel like sometimes we are like, oh my gosh, wait, I've been parenting my child this certain way and maybe I'm not doing it right. Never too late. I don't care if your kid is a
Hmm.
toddler, is 10 years old, or if you have adult children. I think, and this is my perspective with being a therapist as well, obviously not in extreme situations, but just like typical relationships, that it's never too late to do something different. Whether you're going back and saying, hey, I'm really sorry, I approached things in this way and I meant it differently, or I should have done things differently, or you just change your behavior. Like it's never too late to do those things. So I when I was kind of jokingly talking about the Minecraft stuff, I actually read this book, which is like not a parenting book. It's like a nonfiction like thriller. So it kind of seems random, but it was called Wrong Place, Wrong Time. And it was about this mom who essentially like kept going back and reliving these different days in her life, trying to figure out what happens to her family. Time travel, whatever. But the idea is she basically is going back and forth, and her son, like she goes back to when he's younger and he tries to tell her something about his science project. And she's like, I'm busy, I'm busy. And then she flashes forward and he says, oh, I'm doing the science thing. And she goes, oh, tell me about that. And he's like, you've never cared before. You don't care about that. And I went, oh my God, what? So in the book, she kind of mends that. But I was like, whoa, it seems so obvious. But I think like in our minds, like our kids, when they're 5 and up, and they're trying to talk to us about these things, sometimes it's like, okay, well, this isn't like I love my kid, but this thing doesn't really matter. But like that 5-year-old is going to be a 15, 16, 17-year-old adult one day, and they're going to remember the feeling of, did my parent care about what I had to say? Like, yeah, maybe they were busy, maybe they couldn't always hear me out. That's normal. But generally, if I had an interest, did they think that was cool? Did they, if I had something exciting, were they excited with me? And that reading that book so like seems so random, but I was like, whoa, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. So never too late. Start now, wherever you are.
And we talk about how, and maybe you disagree, maybe this is my opinion. Can we talk about how it's the parent's job to initiate that repair? So even if you
Oh,
are an
yes.
adult child and you have a feudal relationship with your parent, it's not necessarily your job to go to your parent and say, hey, you messed up these things, and like, hey, it made me feel this way when you did this, and hey,
Mm-hmm.
like I am having all these hard feelings because of the things that were done to me or said
Yeah.
to me or the way that I was raised. Like that falls on the parent, but that can feel really hard as an adult child, especially if you long for a good relationship with your parent.
Mm-hmm.
If you're now
Mm-hmm.
becoming a parent and you're like, oh, I have this fractured relationship with my own parents that I want to repair, talk to us about that from a mental health standpoint.
Totally. No, I completely agree with you. I think if you are an adult who wants that relationship and there's some sort of, rupture in the relationship, whatever it is, and you feel like it's able to be repaired, of course you can go to your parent and you can say, this hurt me or whatever, and like have those conversations. But I do agree. I think the person who did the harm, whatever the harm is, big, small, whatever, it is their responsibility. And I think what's difficult is that, again, it depends how old your parents are and how old you are and the background. Like there's so many factors here. But I think that often it's really hard to admit that, especially if the childhood is over. They're like, well, I can't do any, like a lot of parents say this. Well, I did the best I could, or I didn't mean to do that, or whatever. And it feels very dismissive. So I think if a person feels like I need to have this conversation with a parent and I know they're not going to initiate it, then you're welcome to do that. If it feels like it's worth the risk, I guess, to you. I know that in my own therapy journey, there were things that I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like that did happen. And it wasn't like my parents did something horrible to me. Like it was more like I was the eldest daughter. And so I felt like no one ever wanted to help me with things. And I like had to do it all on my own. And my therapist very lovingly pointed out, she's like, do you think that your parents saw you doing fine and they thought, well, she doesn't need my help. So then you kept doing it by yourself. And then they kept thinking, well, she still doesn't need my help because she's so independent. She's all those things. She's like, so I'm not saying your parents couldn't have helped you, but like maybe they were noticing things that you were doing and they're like, she's good, right? And so I had a conversation with my mom because in that instance, I knew that my parents didn't really know that's how I felt. And so I went to them and I was like, I always felt like no one like I felt like my siblings got help or got asked how they were, all these things, and I didn't. And they were like, we never felt like you needed us in that way. And these are like parents that showed up for me in so many ways, but like in this one instance. And so in that instance, I went to them because I don't think they knew. And that's not like absolving them of responsibility, but I genuinely, they did not know. And so I started the conversation, and then my mom was like, I had no idea. And I'm so sorry. Like, I thought we were doing the right thing. And like, that conversation really helped. So I absolutely agree with you, but I also think like we are 100% able to take on responsibility to go, okay, if I want this repaired and I know the other person is not going to start it, but maybe they'll join in if I open the door, then let's try it. If you also know that that person will not, then there are other ways to process that, right? Like in therapy or talk, even just talk, I mean, I obviously endorse therapy, but like even talking to other people in similar instances of being like, this is how that felt, like just talking through it. And also like if there's not the ability to repair that relationship, whether it's you're estranged or maybe your parent has passed or whatever the reason, then there are ways to kind of like gently reparent yourself. Like one thing that is one of my favorite things, I have it right here, and I keep this here because I love her. She is me, by the way. I have this little picture of me by my desk,
You're
and
blonde. Oh my gosh,
I
you have such
know
blonde hair.
those are all my kids too. They literally, my kids just look like this. So like I don't show them on the internet, but basically just copy and paste. But I have one thing that I love doing with myself and I tell clients to do often is when you're thinking about things that happened either in your childhood, whether it's someone like in a relationship or just like feelings you had as a child or experiences, whatever, is like looking back at that little picture of yourself and saying what that little version of you needed to hear. And whatever that is, like, hey, like it's okay that you didn't do a good job in school, or, that's not the only thing that matters. Or, you know what? I know you feel like you didn't fit in, but you do. You
Mm.
do belong, or whatever. Or you deserve to have someone hug you after that hard day. And I know that nobody did. And at first I was like, this feels like a little woo-woo for me. But then once I did it, I was like, oh, this is so healing. So I also don't want people to feel like if there's not a chance for repair in the way of like like face to face with that person, that doesn't mean that you can't heal from those things in different ways.
Okay, talk to us about having an emotionally intelligent husband because I too have one of those and I feel very,
Mhm.
very, very lucky.
Yes.
It makes life easier. My God, I don't feel like I am having to parent him. I
Hmm.
credit my mother-in-law so much.
Hmm.
I love having a partner that is introspective to himself.
Hmm.
He understands me. I'm really lucky that he had a sister, so he did grow up in a home with a girl, a female, so I
Hmm.
didn't have to
Hmm.
teach him any of that stuff either. I feel so bad for women who write in sometimes on my Instagram or email or in public and in events
Yeah.
in person, and they'll just share like, my husband's not interested in like being an equal partner. My husband's not interested in doing this work. My husband's not interested in teaching my boys these things. Or maybe the opposite. My husband is stuck in that toxic masculinity, and I'm
Hmm.
trying as the mom to like strike a balance, right? I don't want my
Yeah.
boys to
Yeah.
like pick up everything from their dad because I
Hmm.
can see, and I often am the recipient of a lot of toxic stuff. And so I want my boys to go out into the world and be better and know better and do better, but it's hard when you
Hmm.
don't live at home like you and I do, and your partner is not on board and they may not be as emotionally intelligent. What
Hmm.
do the women out there need to hear about that?
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. This is such a so I'm like, as you're talking, I'm like, I know we
Dump
can't.
him! Leave
Oh yeah, I know
him!
that's what you want to say, right? I'm
Harass
like,
him and get a
leave
new
your
one!
husband, leave him right now. That's what I want to say. No, okay, so which truly, I'm like, I think that in an ideal world, if you had a partner who was not on board with being an equal partner or like helping you, not even helping, standing alongside you and doing these things, yeah, that would be great. I understand that's not the reality for so many people. I think that you can start with conversation, hopefully. And I think it's a different story if your partner is not even open to the conversation of a like, hey, let's talk about division of responsibility in our house. Let's talk about the way that we're talking about other people in our house, like all of these things. Like, for example, like I said, my husband he's like always been very like sensitive and tuned with his emotions. Like he's a musician, so I feel like that's kind of like the vibe. Like he's always been like, I can talk about my feelings, whatever. Probably better than me, honestly. Kind of funny that I'm the therapist, but so that's never been like a huge issue. But there have been things that, especially with us both being raised in like religion, that we've had to come, like we've been on a little bit of different journeys with the way that we see things. And it's never that we've been, I think it'd be different if we were like completely different opinions, but it's more like he very much takes his time to like process things and learn. And sometimes I'd be like, come on, like, why don't you understand what I'm saying? Why don't you? And it was more like, he's like, I'm absorbing, I'm all of these things. I think it's a different conversation if your husband is not open to that. Or I say husband, partner, whatever, whoever it is. It doesn't even have to be a man, okay? Whoever you're with, if they're not open to learning and growing, then that's something different to like contemplate, right? But I think if you can go to your partner and you can say, here's how I'm feeling. And it can be anything. It can be the way you're raising your children. It can be, making sure there's like the whole like fair play method with like a division of household stuff. It can be anything. If you can go to them and say, this is how I feel. Can we figure this out in a way that we both feel like aligns with our values and our beliefs and our capabilities and like our capacity for things? Then that is a great place to start. I often tell my clients who are in positions like this, it's hard not to assume the worst. And this is obviously not talking about if they're like talking in a demeaning way to you or any sort of abuse, that's a completely different topic. But let's say like your spouse is really not showing up in chores, for example. Like they kind of expect you to do everything. And you're like, I think it's really annoying. So it's easy to be like, they just don't want to help me, whatever. That might be true. But what if you sit down and have a conversation and say, hey, this is too much. I know that you care about me. So like, how are we going to figure this out together so I don't feel like I'm carrying much of the mental load and the parenting and all of these things? And then you try it out. It's like an experiment. You try it out together and you see how it goes. And then you revisit it. And I mean, that's like a relationship, right? But I do think, and this is not a like, everyone needs to divorce their husband if they're not perfect. But if your values are different, that is something to, especially if you're able to see like a professional about this, is have that conversation and say, at what point is this a learning conversation? And at what point is this, especially if there are children involved, are they counteracting what I'm teaching my children? Like, can these values live in harmony in our house? Because it's pretty, I have women write into me when I talk about the Better Boy stuff often that are like, what do I do if my husband does this? I'm like, oh gosh, that's really hard because you can teach them so much. But if they have this male model in their house that is the polar opposite of what you're doing, that's pretty tough. That is pretty tough. If they have an influence outside of you, like whether it's, I also have a lot of women that write in, they're like, oh, this is like my ex-husband and like for a reason. And or I have a parent who's very much in the like approaches it in this way. I think that is the type of thing that's like, if there's nothing you can do about those things, they're not a part of your household, then you just have to keep doing what you're doing. And then again, be very intentional about modeling healthy things to them in other ways. I think I'm very lucky. Like I said, my husband is a great role model to my sons. My dad is a great role model to my sons. Like we kind of have an ongoing joke that my dad cries at everything. Like we're like, are you crying yet? Are you crying yet? And he's like, shut up. But I joke, but they know like, oh, like my kids know like, oh, Papa is like sensitive too, and that's okay. Or like something as this is like does not matter. But my side of my family is really short. And for boys, they make a big deal about being tall. So sometimes we'll talk about like, oh, but like Papa played soccer and he's not very tall and he was so good at soccer or whatever. So it's all of these things of like, again, being, and this goes for girls too, when you talk about what does it mean to be you? Like if someone says that's not feminine, is that really true? Like who really cares? Because when they see it all, then they worry less about the definition and more of just like being who they are. So the healthy models mean a lot, I think, out there that are like, there's someone in my home that's undoing all of the work that I'm doing, then that is really worth contemplating. Like, what can you do? I know not everybody, it's like not that easy to just be like, well, I just won't have a relationship with that person anymore. But that's really, really tricky. And it's hard to counteract that, I think, when it's in your own home.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
because you're also walking the balance of like, I don't want to say like, look what your dad did. That was bad. But then I also
Right. Yeah.
do want to point out that like, hey, the way he treated me wasn't okay, or what he said about that woman in the parking lot like wasn't
Yeah.
nice, or the way he spoke to our waitress
Mm-hmm.
not okay. Like, would he have done that if our waitress was a waiter? Like
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's just yeah. I don't know. I mean, hey, I'm not a therapist. I'm just the host of the show, you guys. I don't
Oh
have
my gosh. Well, and that's why I don't see couples. Because I'm like, I think I would be too
Yeah, I
blunt.
would like to see you by yourself at 9 a.m. on Monday.
Yeah.
Girl, divorce him. Girl, get out
Yeah.
while you can.
Run, run. Yes, no, I'm always like, no couples. I can't. Sorry. It's too tricky. I'll
Yeah.
see you after.
Yeah. It's hard. Look, it's hard being parents and it's hard being in a relationship and it's hard parenting together. And,
Hmm.
you and your
Hmm.
partner were raised in two different households with two different belief systems, and in some
Hmm.
cases, in two different religions or two different
Yeah.
cultures or two different places in the world or the US or whatever. And I just think that I think you hit the nail on the head when you were like, the goal is to do better than what we had. Not because everyone had it bad,
Right.
but
No.
because you're never going to get it completely right. Like I love
Mm-mm.
that you joked, like, my kids will be in therapy. Like, hopefully, all of our kids will be in therapy.
I
Therapy
hope so.
is good. Like, we want everyone in therapy.
Yes.
We just
Yes.
don't necessarily want them to be like, my parents traumatized me because of X, Y, and Z. Like,
Yes.
maybe they're just learning things that we didn't have the capability to teach them because that stuff wasn't around. Like, I always think
Right.
about how gentle parenting was not around when we were little. Like, it
Yeah.
was spank your child era, right? Like, and we
Right.
never once thought, like, oh, if we teach children that hitting them is the way to get them
Yeah.
to comply, are we going to raise a violent generation? It wasn't
Right.
until a generation
No.
started to be violent where we were like,
Hmm.
hmm, what is
Maybe
causing
hitting them is
this?
not the
Hmm.
answer.
Could it be
But
that
they
we're
didn't
whipping them?
know.
Like,
Truly. It's like, yeah. And so it's like, right. It's a balance of like, okay, yeah, now we can, hold people accountable, go, that wasn't the best thing. But also, that's what people told you to do. So exactly. I think you just try, we know better now, so we do better, hopefully. That's the goal.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of shame in parenting. I think that a lot of
Yeah.
times you can listen to podcasts like this episode and think like, "Oh God, well, 3 years ago we had this rupture and I didn't apologize, and I wonder if my 6-year-old hates me now." And it's like, no, your
No.
3-year-old probably doesn't even remember that now that they're six.
No.
But
Yeah.
going forward, start now when they're six, right? Like, if you're
Exactly.
like, oh God, my child is 12 and I've never repaired before because I didn't know how to. Maybe you get some therapy, learn how to repair, start implementing that in your
Yes.
home. Be open with
Hmm.
your child about, look, I listened to a podcast. I realized I wasn't doing everything right. Mommy's going to get some support. I'm going to start doing some awkward things like apologizing to you. It
Yeah.
may be a little weird at first, but I
Yes.
just want you to know that I love you and I make mistakes
Hmm.
too. And I'm always
Yes.
supposed to keep you safe. And even when I mess up, I will come back and realize that maybe I didn't keep you safe, or maybe I made you feel scared when I yelled at you, or
Hmm.
maybe I'm a little snippy because I'm super stressed. I'm working on these things. And I think just having those
Yes.
open conversations with your children is a great start. I don't know that it's the answer, and I don't know that there
Yeah.
is one singular answer, but I do
I
think
don't
that
think
it's a
there is.
really
Yeah.
good start that a lot of us did not get in our childhoods.
100%. Yeah. No shame here for sure. I'm glad that you said that. I don't want anyone to walk away from listening to this and feel like I'm doing something wrong. I think it's just maybe there's a little nudge internally that's like, oh, wait, I haven't done that. I should try that. And again, I think if your kids are old enough and saying to them, like, you know what, I'm going to start doing something different. And yeah, it might be kind of weird. And, I'm sorry that I haven't done this before, but I'm going to start now. I think our kids respect us more when we're able to admit mistakes. And again, it makes them feel safe to make their own. So, no shame, just start where you are, start even in small ways. It makes a big difference. And
Mhm.
that's all you can do.
Oh
It's
my
good.
gosh, yeah. Look, parenting is hard, you guys.
It
Nobody taught us how to
is.
do it. And
I know.
nobody taught our parents how to do it. And so
I,
you might have good role models, but you might not have great role models. And I don't want you to feel bad if you're like, well, nobody taught me how to do this. Look, nobody taught Breeze and I how to do this either. Like, we're
yeah,
just kind of winging it too.
right.
We're
Exactly.
just sharing what's working for our family. So,
Exactly.
where can people find more about your Better Boys project and download your curriculum guide?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. My name there, I'm sure you can like link it or whatever, is Breezel Weasel. It's my nickname that my dad gave me actually. So you can find me on both of those platforms. And if you go to like my highlights on Instagram, I have all of the videos in a highlight. So you can go and watch all of those. And then there's also a link that I just have it listed on Etsy where you can download it. It's like a digital file PDF or whatever. If you have any issues finding it, send me a message. I check my DMs all the time. And I share this type of content all the time on both platforms. So happy to have anyone who wants to join this little community and ask questions and, hopefully raise a better generation together and improve the world together. That's the whole goal.
Do you ever think about the weight of that? Because I think about that all the time. Like, oh
I
my
do.
God, like Saggy is eventually going to be someone's husband. Like, I will eventually have a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law, and I will
Mhm.
like, I'll have to take another child into my home, which at that point, they're probably adults at that point, but like,
Yeah.
Do you ever think about that? Like, I'm shaping the way that he's going to date and think about women's
Hmm.
rights and think about
Hmm.
interacting with other men and,
Hmm.
the way that he's going to be a dad one day. Like, I
Yeah.
think about these things and it can feel so
Yes.
scary and heavy.
Yes, it can feel scary and heavy, but I also think number one, the fact that you're even thinking that shows that you are a good parent. Like I think
Mm,
that if a parent is not thinking, "Oh my gosh, the way I just had that interaction is like important," then that's something to look at, right? So I think you can have a little security in that. And then I think you can also remember like yes, so much of what our kids learn is at home, but we're not the only ones. That's why it's good to have a community, whether it's grandparents or teachers or friends or families that are around you, that like those people are influencing them too. So absolutely, it's a big responsibility. But again, if we're coming at this from openness and being accepting and affirming and loving toward our child and being open to any of these conversations, then that's really what you can do. So while it feels heavy, it also can feel very comforting to know that your kids in with all of their unique personality and quirks and interests and talents is that like they get to bring that to the world and you get to help them arrive there, right? So I do get it, but I think the worry is sometimes it's a good motivator as long as we don't
yeah.
let it consume us.
Yeah. And it is a privilege. I mean, it genuinely is a privilege to be able to raise the next generation. Like, I'm
Hmm.
so excited to see what the next generation of kids look like because
Yeah.
I just think we're doing things so differently, and I'm excited to
Hmm.
see if it works. I'm excited to
Me
see how it
too.
turns out. So, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Breeze, thank you so much for being here.
Yay.
You gave us your Instagram, you gave us
Hmm.
your guide. Is
Hmm.
there any other way that people can work with you? What if people were looking for a mental health therapist? Are you taking clients there? Do they have to live in a
Yeah.
certain area? Tell us about that.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So if you're looking for a therapist, I am in Washington State. So send me a DM and I can like, and then we'll communicate over email if anyone's interested in that. I am certified in perinatal mental health, but I see a wide variety of clients. So teen girls, young adult women, moms, postpartum, whatever is kind of my niche there. But I am accepting new clients. You just have to be in Washington because they're really strict on that stuff. So just reach out to me directly if you are interested. And if I'm not a fit, then I can help you find somebody who is.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I love that you mentioned that too because your therapist should be like your care provider, like your OBGYN or
Yeah.
your midwife or your doula. Like they do need to be a fit, right? You don't want to
Yes.
be seeing someone who is not aligned with you and
Mhm.
or isn't able to help you reach your goals. Look, take it from me. I've talked about therapy for on here for ages. I love therapy.
Yeah.
I've been through
Yes.
many a therapist and done multiple different types of
That's great.
therapy.
Yeah.
I just finished with EMDR and
Oh, wow. Yeah.
it's just, you guys know, I think therapy is a way of life. And it doesn't mean that something's wrong. Like, you should actually get into
No.
therapy, not necessarily because something is wrong, like, just having an extra set of eyes that can help you
Yes.
navigate this crazy life is so,
Hmm.
so, so good.
It is.
Oh my gosh, Breeze, thank you so much for being here. You guys,
Yes,
thanks
this was great.
for, yeah, thanks for hanging out with us today, you guys. This was super fun. And I hope that our boy moms out there listening, I hope that this was helpful. I know that it doesn't come with an instruction manual, and I know that many of us were not necessarily raised in the house that we want to raise our children. It doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It just means that we want to do things different, and I think that's great. That's so commendable, and I love that for you. But I also know that so many of you are like, okay, I want to do it different, but I don't know how. I hope this conversation was a starting point for you. I hope you use it as a launching pad. I hope that it got your wheels turning. And now you have a couple of resources that you can go to. Breeze mentioned a couple of books. We can link those in the show notes. You have the Birth Lounge. Breeze is a resource. Her Instagram is a resource. Get her guide. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Be sure to follow Breeze on social media. And you can find me at Tranquility by HeHe and at the.birth.lounge. Until next time, head to your app store and download the Birth Lounge app for evidence-based childbirth education and data-driven postpartum support delivered straight to your phone. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I love hanging out with you, and it is an honor to be your go-to gal when it comes to preparing for your baby. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a 5-star review and tell others why they should be listening to the Birth Lounge podcast too. You deserve to have a birth that you love with a provider that values your autonomy and respects informed consent without all the trauma that you so commonly hear about on social media. New episodes air every Wednesday and Friday. Hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. I'm HeHe, and this is the Birth Lounge Podcast.